Let's bring in Zeve Paterson, who's down at Rogers Arena. He took in practice, the last practice before tomorrow's morning skate and the first game back from the Olympic break. Just in terms of what we were just talking about, JPat, lots has happened in the province since the last Canucks home game. You have an idea of what's planned tomorrow outside of the game by way of commemoration?
I have not spoken with anybody here in terms of game presentation and what they will do. Will they honor the returning Olympians? They did that in the game before, so might they just acknowledge the medalists? Josh Morrissey has been put on IR. I don't imagine he'll be here. Connor Hellebuck still celebrating, and I think that's the surest bet in hockey that he won't play here. I don't even know if he'll be here. Why would he come all the way to Vancouver if he's not going to dress? So, I think there's a lot of uncertainty around who's going to be here. Kevin Lankinen's still not back in town, apparently, according to Adam Foote. He's expected to arrive later tonight. I don't think he'll suit up for the Canucks. And I see the league is granting an exemption, a roster exemption for Olympians returning if they don't suit up for the first game back. And that actually comes in handy to the Vancouver Canucks, because if they're going to activate Zeve Buium, Brock Boeser, and Marco Rossi all off IR, they were going to have to do some cap gymnastics and some roster manipulation there. But with Jiri Patera here for one game as the backup, you can get through a night if you get this exemption for Kevin Lankinen. So I think that's the way it'll go. And then you send Patera back to the minors, and they don't play again until Saturday. And Blake, just on your point about Jim Robson, Saturday's in Seattle. So that's out of their control in terms of the next game. So, I think they have to acknowledge the passing of Jim Robson, but I also think there probably will be a moment of silence for the Tumbler Ridge victims and all that went on during this Olympic break. So, lots happening here, and we'll probably get a few more answers about the pregame festivities. And maybe this is just all of our way of saying this is delaying our discussion about what we might see once the puck drops. Because, look, 25 games that just don't matter for the Vancouver Canucks in terms of their on-ice performance. Yeah,
but the performance may actually look better than when we last remember, given who could play tomorrow. Before we get there, I know seat beat is Rob Williams' thing, not yours, Jeff, but I can't help but notice all those black seats and the symmetry behind you at Rogers Arena. How does it look inside the bowl now that those seats are finally done?
Well, yeah, of course, these ones behind me that you see on the screen have been here since the start of the season. It was just that one last panel of retractable seats, and that was part of the problem here. Apparently, there was a different bracket required to fit the retractable seats compared to the ones in the bowl, and that's why they pushed this project, the end of the project, until the Olympic break. They're under wraps here today because they are pushed all the way back. It was a client invitational practice. There were a couple hundred people in here from a real estate company that is one of the Canucks partners, and I think there's going to be some sort of meet and greet afterwards in that one and the Zamboni end. So I don't have the final sight lines for you and how it's all going to look, but you look behind me if people are watching. I think it'll look a lot like that. A whole bunch of black seats that finally will match the remainder of the bowl. And it's been a project a couple of years in the making, but I think they have finally put it across the finish line, and they can roll it out tomorrow night for all to see and for some to sit in.
Former COO Jeff Stipek wanted to do it almost a decade ago, for heaven's sakes.
I hate having to go back to IKEA and go on the Parks line. I need a tweak to my package.
Empty black seats blend in a little bit more than the colored ones.
Yes.
Speaking of color, Brock Boeser has been in if you're just catching up with the Canucks, Brock Boeser had been in a red jersey at practice as they got their skates back going at UBC last week. Canucks said he had a virus, but then Adam Foote said that they're also wondering whether it was related to the concussion he suffered. What's the latest on Brock Boeser, Jeff?
Yeah, it's been an eventful week because when they first got back onto the ice last week out at UBC on Tuesday, he was a full participant. We asked to speak to him then because it was the first time that any of us had a chance to talk to him since he had his bell rung by Brian Rust in that game, the end of the Pittsburgh game. And so we wanted to catch up with the veteran player after the injury and the suspension. And we were told that he wasn't feeling well and he just wanted to exit the building. With a week between game action, I think the media agreed, fine, we'll catch up with him. the next day. And sure enough, on Wednesday, again, a full participant, we had a chance to talk to him then. He expressed the fact that he didn't like the hit. He was glad that the league backed him up with the suspension, but that didn't help him with his concussion. Missed the 5 games. His mom, Lori, was in town for the mom's trip, and then Brock didn't go, and so neither did his mom, so there was a little disappointment on that front. But then it got interesting because Friday, he started practice, and after about 10 minutes, down the tunnel he went, and that was the last we saw of him. And then he didn't skate with the group on Saturday, and that's when Adam Foote said they were trying to drill down to get to the bottom of all this. Because, of course, he missed the 5 games with a concussion. And was this, a fact, a guy coming back after the layoff and ramping it up and just not being able to fully get through all these practices? So yesterday in a non-contact jersey, back in his regular jersey on the power play today. And I didn't get a chance to talk to him after practice, but just the fact that he has been fully involved these last 2 days and on the power play, that's generally a pretty good indication that he will be activated off IR, and I fully expect that Brock Boeser will be in uniform when the puck drops here on Wednesday night.
And with the Olympic break providing some shelter for some players that were a little bit nicked as well going into the break, Garland wasn't maybe at 100%, and Rossi certainly. Jeff, this team is looking okay, and that's probably bad news for some Canucks fans that want to make sure that they're at the bottom. But let's bring up the lineup from today. I mean, that is a respectable-looking group of forwards, at least by reputation. Höglander, of course, has had his struggles here. But when Sasson and Ratu are the extras and can't even get in, I mean, that says something. And that top 6 is back into full effect. So maybe comes at a poor time here for Canucks fans that want to see them remain in 32nd, but that's not a bad lineup, Jeff.
They have cushion.
They do have cushion.
Yeah, and of course, Filipino injured again over the Olympic break here with the puck to the face of practice last week, and so he's going to be out, and I think probably done for the year, although, nobody's saying that at this point, but with 25 games to go and a couple of bones in his face broken, I don't see a way that he comes back. So, for me, Marco Rossi is the guy, right? I had a good chat with him last week. And I wrote about this at Canucks Army as well. Human nature. You get traded, basically you get a new job, you want to impress your bosses. So he stepped right into the lineup, but I think we have to remember he had been out for 6 weeks in Minnesota and didn't get back in the Minnesota lineup before the trade. And it was a foot injury from blocking his shot, but he sucked it up and he wanted to perform for his new team, but he admitted that there was still lingering issues there and that he wasn't at his best. I think his play reflected that. He had a goal and an assist, but he really hadn't been terribly noticeable. And so then he was hurt again on December 30th against Philadelphia, and that's the last time we've seen him. So out a month, then the Olympic break, and so a couple extra weeks to heal up. He's been buzzing out here, and I am excited to see, what can he do? This is a guy that was a 60-point player in the National Hockey League before the age of 25, so there's some pedigree there, a first-round draft pick. But he didn't look like that player in the limited, it's been 8 games that he's played for the Vancouver Canucks. So, Paterson and Rossi together as a 1-2 punch down the middle. We don't know what we're going to see from EP40 ultimately in terms of his production levels, but it does give Adam Foote some options that he just hasn't had all season long. And then to back it up with Teddy Bluger and David Kampf, who both came off reasonable performances for their respective countries in the Olympics. I would say this is as good the Canucks have been all season long down the middle, and that includes early in the season when Bluger played a couple of games and Filipino was going then as well. But we'll see what that means to the Canucks. And you're right, Blake. I think some people hear that and think, no, of all times now, what are you doing? But they have built themselves a significant cushion. We remind people it's 7 points, plus St. Louis is running away with the tiebreaker there. And I don't expect the tiebreaker is going to come into play, but the Blues have way more regulation wins than the Vancouver Canucks. So rest easy. There is a significant gap from 32nd to 31st place in the National Hockey League. And even if this is the best lineup that they have iced all season, I don't think it's going to do a whole lot to put a dent in their stranglehold on last place in the standings.
And Sasson and Ratu as the odd guys out, Jeff. Are we not sweating that because it's just showcase time for Kampf and Kane, and they should be gone a week from Friday?
That's how I would read that. Max Sasson was a placeholder for Brock Boeser the day that he didn't practice, and I was encouraged because I've been banging the drum that I think it's time to see what Max Sasson can do on the wing in the National Hockey League with 2 assists all season and a 42% win rate. I just don't think he projects long-term as a centerman in the National Hockey League, but I think his speed can be utilized on the wings. I think he could be ferocious on the forecheck. He can score goals off the wing. And so, yeah, I think it's going to be, Evander Kane right now, along with Bluger and Camp. I mean, that's just one winger, but now there's all the, talk as well. Will they go further, and will they actually move a winger with term? It could open up a couple of spots. And I think the other thing to keep in mind here, guys, is with the injury news to Jonathan Lecker-Mackey this week, there just isn't a whole lot down on the farm in terms of guys that you would recall, guys that you really want to give a legitimate shot to. So if they do move out some pieces here, you would think that would open up an opportunity for both Aatu Räty and Max Sasson, and we'll see what they can do with it. But I do think it's probably going to have to be a little bit of patience here for 4 more games. They play in Chicago the night of the trade deadline, but of course that game after the deadline. So it is 4 games. The home game here against Winnipeg and Seattle, and then the Carolina and Dallas games. And so 4 more games, 10 more days, essentially. Be patient if you're one of those young guys that's looking for an opportunity, because I think it'll come, but it may not come until the 11th hour ahead of the deadline.
I'm intrigued by what Zeve Buium looks like, having had a chance to sort of touch grass after the trade. And, trades are probably upsetting for younger players, even though they don't have the families to move. It's a change of scenery at such a young age. He probably thought he was going to be a member of the Wild for a long time, and boom. I wonder if he can settle down here and play a little bit of a better game over the final 6-7 weeks.
Was that Boom or Buium? Either way, we'll work with you. I had a good chat with him last week at UBC as well. Remember, facial fracture, very significant injury in the Pittsburgh game, the same game that Brock was hurt in. He has been in a full cage, facial cage, until today when he shed that and he went to the bubble. And I don't know if that is sort of more preparation for returning to game action, but whatever the case, a little bit of a change in the apparatus to protect his face. But he has been a regular here in practice, skating primarily with Tyler Myers. And I do think that we would expect to see that when they line up on Wednesday, along with Rossi and Boeser. He's got to be activated off the IR, but that's just procedural. And I think the other thing for Buium was just the timing of it. Remember, he scored the brilliant goal against the New Jersey Devils on the Friday night, and then it was the Sunday afternoon game against Pittsburgh, and he expressed some disappointment. He thought that, not just the goal. I mean, we remember the goal, but he felt like his play had been coming on. He felt that there had been some confidence maybe that had been waning earlier in January. It was a healthy scratch in the middle of that road trip in Montreal, but he felt like his game was back to where he wanted it to be. And then, he gets hit in the face with a puck. And even though he finished that game, hasn't played since. So in some ways, the Olympic break came at a good time for him, because ultimately it's only 5 games, even though it's been a month. So he didn't miss a whole lot of game action. But he just wants to get back to doing the things that he can do. And that is break the puck out, use his skating and the hockey smarts that he's got. And, we've seen glimpses of what make him such a tantalizing prospect. Again, just 20 years of age. And so you have to keep that in mind. He's not Quinn Hughes. He's not going to be Quinn Hughes' replacement. And he makes that clear, too, that, he wants to carve his own path here, even though he's always going to be linked to Quinn Hughes just by virtue of the fact that he was the centerpiece of that trade. So I don't know how long he's going to have to wear facial protection. That probably doesn't make his job any easier, but it also, he's not that far removed from college where, that was just a fact of life for him. So, he's got the clean bill of health here, and I think we'll start to see him doing his things. We should mention, though, that the last couple of days have been a pretty heavy focus on the power play, and it looks like even though they've experimented at times with Buium and Tom Willander, Philip Hronek is back manning the point on the first unit, the 2 young guys together on a 2-defenseman set on power play 2. So it does look like they'll get some power play time, but it kind of feels like they've decided to come back to the veteran in Hronek, at least for now, and we'll see with 25 games to go if there is a little more experimentation when it comes to working with the man advantage.
On goaltending, Jeff, you said Lankinen not going to play tomorrow because he's getting back late from the Olympics. He didn't play a minute there for Finland, so I imagine he's well rested and ready to go. It's only the one set of back-to-backs in all of March. Now, Tolopilo played 6 games for Abbotsford during the break, 2 excellent starts, 2 terrible starts, 2 somewhat in the middle. But one of the conversations we were having prior to the Olympic break is how much do you want to see of Nikita Tolopilo and how much run are they going to give him? How do you see Foote and the coaching staff divvying up the goaltender starts going forward here? Are they going to lean on Lankinen like a true number one? Is it going to be more a win and you're in, or do you think they're going to look for opportunities to give the young Belarusian some chances?
Yeah, I think you're going to see a fair bit of Nikita Tolopilo. I think they like what they've seen from him. His NHL numbers would back that up. The shutout win over the Anaheim Ducks, and we know that wins have been in short supply. So, he's done a nice job when he has played. And, of course, Lankinen played his 2 minutes of that shutout, so we should give him his due. It wasn't officially on Tolopilo's record, but the other thing to keep in mind, guys, is Lankinen had a horrible January. I mean, the team did as well, but it's been a struggle for Lankinen, and I think that's probably part of the reason that he didn't get a sniff over at the Olympics. In fact, didn't even dress for a handful of the games. Jonas Korpisalo was employed as the backup there, so Kevin Lankinen sort of fell on the depth chart during those Olympic games. And the fact that he hasn't played a second of hockey anywhere for the better part of 3 weeks now, that's going to make integrating him back, even if it's the National Hockey League, I think that's going to make it a little bit tough. So that's why I think the plan right now is to give Lankinen a little bit of time when he gets back here, deal with jet lag. And if you dress as the backup, you're one knock away from having to, come in cold. And I don't think they want to put him in that spot whatsoever. So I would think that Thursday is the Canucks' big charity Dice and Ice night. The team gets the day off after the game against Winnipeg. And so I would expect that we see Lankinen back at practice perhaps on Friday, and maybe he serves as the backup on Saturday, or maybe with one practice he's ready to go. But it wouldn't surprise me if Tolopilo got both starts coming out of the Olympic break, and then from there, they'll try to find their rhythm ultimately. But you got to find out what you've got in Tolopilo. And I think part of it too, guys, is, with Thatcher Demko's extension set to kick in and Kevin Lankinen under contract, we're headed right back to where we were last summer with, is there enough net to go around for the guys that they've got under contract in this organization? And, are they going to get to a point where they have to trade Tolopilo in the summer because they're committed to the two guys that are ahead of them on the depth chart? Or, do they want to consider other options with their goaltending? But I think first and foremost, you have to know what you've got in Nikita Tolopilo at the National Hockey League level. So I hope he gets his fair share of starts here over these 25 games.
Lastly, from me, Jeff, what happened with Philip Hronek and Nils Höglander at practice?
Yeah, just a spirited battle. It was a drill. This was yesterday out at UBC. I think we're at a point where they're ready to go. Like, it kind of feels like the end of a training camp here, right? And they're tired of playing against each other, and they kind of want to spend their emotion battling other teams and other players. So Höglander can be feisty. We know that. Maybe haven't seen enough of that in what is turning into a lost season for him, but, got in on the forecheck on a battle drill. Phil Hronek took exception to it. Kind of looked like they were going to go their separate ways, except Phil wasn't quite done and sort of followed Höglander out to the neutral zone. One-sided conversation ensued there. Höglander kind of shrugged like he was done with it, like, oh, well, it's hockey, it's a battle drill. But Hronek wasn't taking any of that as an explanation. He, again, I don't know. Ultimately, I mean, it looked like every other drill, but clearly something happened in the corner that Phil Hronek took exception to. But they patched things up. Teammates, as they will, got on with practice here today. It was an uneventful practice for the most part, and we'll see what they look like. It's go time with 25 games to go, and need I remind people that this is a hockey club that has 2 wins in its last 19 outings.
Philip Hronek acting like all other Canuck captains before him, picking fights at practice, right? Perfect pick.
Well said, Blake. Mm-hmm. 6 wins on home ice as well for the Vancouver Canucks all season long. Okay, rink wide tomorrow. Jeff will have coverage. He'll join us later in the week. Thanks for this, JPat.
Yeah, I'm going to have to dust off the old hosting skills there. It's been a little while with the Olympic break, but you're right, rink-wide tomorrow. And 14 of the final 25 here at Rogers Arena. So you trot out that home ice record. I think some people had forgotten or maybe tried to forget over the break, but no, it's going to follow the Canucks here into the resumption of their schedule. But 14, that's what happens when you back-end load all of these games. They've had the 1-8 game homestand. They've got another one coming up here shortly.
That's
14 of the final 25 right here at the Raj.